White. Hi, good morning. Wherever you're watching this, it could be a good morning, could also be a good afternoon, or even good evening. I'm Tic Tac Tomar, taking over for Andrew Berkshire for Game Over International. And I think it's actually pretty interesting to see how many things that we saw overnight, or at least between dates as we were going into day three of the SDBN coverage of the Olympics. I think the big thing that kind of stands out is for speed skating. We have Isabelle Weideman winning Canada's first medal, winning bronze in speed skating, while finishing with a time of 3 minutes 58.64 seconds. Personally, speed skating is something that's always cool to me, just because, again, based off of like the skating technique and the way that things can go. Also, want to give a special shout out to Schouten of the Netherlands, who won gold in that event. So that was awesome. We also saw from men's ski jump normal hill, we have Mackenzie Boyd Close and Matthew Sokup, who both qualified for the medal round. Mackenzie Boyd Close finishing with 94.5 meters on the jump, finishing in the top 20, and then Matthew Sokup at 75 meters. So yeah, again, so they'll be qualifying for the medal round, so there'll be another opportunity for Canada to get the medal there, perhaps the 201st, again, as Isabelle Weideman got Canada's 200th medal of the Olympics. We have the women's cross country skiing took place. There are 4 Canadians that participated. Sandrine Brown finished the highest, finishing in the top 20. But there's another special shout out to Therese Johaug of Norway, who actually captured the gold there. And I want to say it was her first gold. She's won gold at World Championships, but as far as gold medals go, this was her first at the Olympics for cross country skiing. So that was awesome for her to see there. On the, I guess, more exciting hype aspects of it, Canada versus Sweden in mixed doubles curling took place. Canada lost the game 6-2 to Sweden. It was a tough start. They were down 4-1 at the fourth's end. Then Sweden ended up finishing things off and then getting the win at the end. So now that leaves Team Canada tied at fourth with the U.S. And when it comes to the qualification aspect, or going into the the semifinals, it's only the top 4 teams that make it. And the next game that Canada has is against the U.S., who they are tied with in the standings. So I think that'll actually work out to be a pretty interesting and very intense game. Mixed curling overall has actually seemed to be a lot more intense. Because you're going from a full team to just 2 people, so a lot of communication is key. And I think the fact that we actually get to hear the teammates, mic'd up and hear their conversations is something that, for a lot of sports viewers, we're not really used to. So that's actually pretty sick to see. But yeah, that's going to be a pretty interesting development to see, again, as Canada they go off on their path, on their journey, again, to make it to the semifinals against their game against the U.S. That is coming up. But the big thing that took place as far as events go was Canada, women's hockey team having their second game, playing against Team Finland, winning 11-1. It's funny, when Steve introduced me to as a co-host of Game Over International, he said, "Hey, what would Omar bring up first, Michael Bunting or Dragon Ball Z?" And I'm gonna prove him right, because that game, Canada against Finland, was like if Krillin walked up to Frieza and said, "Hey, Frieza, I'm going to be the hero today," because it was just a complete domination from the women's team on all ends, on multiple fronts. And to talk about that further and to break it down further, I'm going to bring in my guest, Nick Barden. Hey, Nick, how's
How's
it
it
going?
going?
How are you? How are you this morning?
A little bit, a little bit tired. I'm not used to waking up this early, but I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely is it is tough when it comes to these like time differences when events, but I think when you have a game like what happened last night, it's definitely a game that's worth staying up for, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. It was the first thing I did want to say was just it was crazy how the Canadian women just it seemed like they kept coming in waves. Like I know we talk about it a lot with like NHL hockey, but this team did not stop on Finland, and I thought Finland was going to be a team that maybe would give Canada a little run for their money just because they have in the past, but without, I mean, their star goaltender, that was pretty tough. And Canada just kept coming and coming and coming, and they didn't stop.
Yeah, I think to that point, you did hear that narrative a lot when it came to the game. You know that even though historically Canada has done very well against Finland, I think I read a stat that out of the 85 games that Canada and Finland have played against, Canada's won 82 of them. Only lost two, and one of them was a tie. But even still, when they played those games, they're very competitive, and there was a battle. There's battles throughout, but just from top to bottom, it was just like a dismantled. Like for a large portion of the game, it looked like Finland had no answer for Canada, and it's interesting that you bring up the goaltending. Because if it's not for Finland's goaltender and Rising, I think the game's probably a lot worse. So worse than the score kind of finished out with.
Yeah, I mean, she really like kept that team in it, and like if it would have been like I enjoy when teams like Canada show how good they are, but like when it gets to like 10, 11, 12, and then you start getting higher in the score, it's just like as much as it is cool to see, you start to feel bad for the other team just because they're getting hammered so much. And it's a good thing that Finland had a solid goaltender that just kept kept the score at bay.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about standouts. Because obviously, there are the stars of the team, and I think the big thing or the big conversation around this women's team is the depth. And it wasn't just one player that was getting it done; it was several players getting it done. And it was actually interesting that on the day one coverage of Game Over International, Andrew Berkshire and Josh Book talked about Jamie Lee Rattray, who has kind of been growing as a force on the team, but the overall dialogue has been, why can't you get enough ice time? Even in situations like the Switzerland game, where it's a complete blowout, you also have an injury in the lineup, but she's still playing under 10 minutes. And then this game, it seems like she got an opportunity, got a tap on the shoulder from the coach, and they played her on the second line, and I think right off the bat. Like her first shift, she creates a turnover at the offensive blue line, leads to a dangerous scoring chance. Ended up getting a goal on her own, and you can just see how hyped and how energetic she is. And honestly, I think she really did set the tone for the game, because her playing style and the way that she kind of contributed all over the ice was just something that we saw a lot from Canada. Just this overwhelming onslaught of offense, of continuous pressure, to the point where there were barely any moments, especially in the first period, where Finland was able to establish any pressure. The forecheck was strong, the pressure was strong. Anytime they tried to to get out of the zone, there is a Canadian player on top of them and kind of getting in their way. So Jamie Lee Rattray is a player that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. But who were some standouts for you, Nick?
I did want to say first, I believe Brian Mudryk said it after the first intermission that Finland only had 41 seconds of possession time in the first period, which like I saw how good Canada was. I didn't think like they limited Finland that much, but that's crazy. For me though, one player that stands out, it's got to be Natalie Spooner. I mean, like there was Sarah Fillier, Sarah Nurse, like those two really turned it on in that game. But I don't know, Natalie Spooner, 9 points in the first two games, like she's sort of doing it really quietly, which is another crazy thing because I don't know how you can do 9 points in two games and sort of go under the radar with it. But just the way she's been playing and just her being able to contribute on a level that I I don't think I've ever seen before is really good to see, and it's really exciting to see. And just going forward, just to see what Canadians can start going up and up and up in points, because that's really interesting. And Sarah Fillier is one of those players who I guess is another player who had caught my eye, and I just would love to see how dominant she can be at this level.
I think it's interesting to see how the conversation around Natalie Spooner, to your point, and also Philippe Poulin, who have been leaders in kind of in their own way. Like Natalie Spooner, has been a good puck distributor, and the assists speak for themselves. The fact that she's able to get all of these points, but I think it's also the little things that she's doing that are contributing positively to the team. And when you see Philippe Poulin, who I think a lot of people are waiting for the big goal or the big moment, but it's a very clean assassin like playing style where she's doing a lot of those good things. Like there are a number of like passes that came out of nowhere that led to like point blank scoring chances that again Ryzen kind of had to stop. There was a pass like I want to say off from the left side in the first period that was point blank right in the blue paint. Had to stop that. So it's really interesting again to see how there's so much depth and besides the stars that a lot of them are bringing their own playing style, bringing their own contributing factors, and everything's kind of working out perfectly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that was one of the good things, like you said earlier, just other players getting an opportunity when they're up by so much, because that's one of the key things is like you don't want to push forward while you're up 10-0 or 10-1 and just have your star players keep coming in waves against a team that really can't do much, and just allowing other players to get chances will, for one, get them into the game, and two, it'll help them with their confidence if they're lacking it or if they can't find it. It'll allow them to get on the score sheet and allow them to feel comfortable. And then even like it in the goaltending aspect, like you would have wanted to see like one of the other two, one of the backup goalie to come in. She didn't, which was unfortunate, just because you'd like to see the workload um, lessened on Davian, because like there's always the chance of an injury, and I believe she's the front runner to be the goaltender for the whole Olympics. So that's one thing that I would have liked to see, is just another goaltender come in for maybe the second or third or halfway point, just because there was no chance that Finland was going to come back. So that would have been a thing. But yeah, again, it's just seeing players getting chances. It's really good to see. And then just getting an opportunity to play more than they actually would in a regular game is really cool.
Yeah, let's actually talk about Debian a little more because like I thought that she had a like just like many other players on the team had a quiet but great game. I think those games where you have one team that's in the offensive zone the entire time, and then just because eventually Finland did get their chances. I think especially towards the end of the first period, where they actually started to establish some offensive zone pressure, and even at the beginning of the second period as well, once they got their power play, and even once they got their first goal of the night, with a point shot through traffic. But Debian came up with some solid saves as well. Some point blank glove saves, and I think the thing that stood out the most to me was just the rebound control. Like any shot that Finland got, like there weren't any loose pucks in the blue paint, or pucks being kind of sent off to unideal areas. Like a long shot was taken, it was swallowed. There was a face off. Canada won the face off usually. Got possession, went back to the offensive zone, and then just the cycle continued. So I think even though you have a team like Canada that has like such strong offensive capabilities, I think it's interesting to see how you still need goaltending. Like regardless, your team is good just as your team is as good as its goaltending. And I think when you have a goaltender like Debian who can pretty much have a quote unquote relaxing night. Again, I'm not saying that she didn't face any shots, but still come up big, and not kind of give Finland any life. I think is actually pretty significant because all you need is a couple goals to go in, and after the Team Finland can say like, hey, like we can hang with this team. Like all we have to do is just wait for our chances and capitalize, and we can score. But Debian was saying no a lot to no a lot that game.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's a difficult game when your team is up by a few and you're not really getting shots, and then an odd one comes from the point and it goes in, and then I I'm not a goaltender, so I don't really know what goaltenders might think in the situation. But if it were me in that net, I'd probably be thinking, okay, that shouldn't have went in, and now I gotta like make sure more don't. And it's so difficult because when you don't get that many shots on net, you're not really tested and you're not really into the game. And then I'm not going to sit that shot that came from the point wasn't it wasn't a good shot, but I don't think she saw it. But just like the more that you're not into the game, the harder it is going to having to make those saves. And I think she did really well in covering her ground and keeping her composure for that entire game, because I believe there was a point where they did score and it was 5-1, and I was thinking as a Leafs fan, 5-1, bad situation. But then you sort of watch Canada and you remember, oh yeah, they just come in waves and they don't stop until the period's over, the whistle's blown. And like again, credit to Desbiens, because it's a hard thing to do when you're not playing and you're not getting shots. And I mean, hats off to her, hats off to them, because it's a tough game, and for them to do what they did to Finland and do it the game before as well, I just don't have any words to describe how they can score. Like I think it's 20 or 20, it's over 20 goals in 2 games.
Yeah, quick math. Yeah, literally. And it's just like an offensive onslaught, and not even at 5-on-5. Like I actually want to talk about the penalty kill as well, because it seems like Canada has really enforced the power kill, and it's just like it's just not fair. It's like if like you're the team and you're thinking like, okay, cool, run the power play. We're gonna have our opportunity, to score, to get some chances, gain some momentum, and then you have Turnbull just like coasting down the wall like all the time, getting all of these shorthanded breakaways and chances and scoring chances over and over again. So like, if you're a team, like what do you do against a team like Canada that that has such an aggressive and dangerous penalty kill?
That's a good question. I was so surprised seeing that. I would think, okay, a penalty kill for Canada. Finland should be able to get back in the game. And then, nope, Canada just came right down the rink with the puck. And I'm like, oh, all right. Like, this is not even fair anymore. Like, when you look at it at this point, like, you think, like, who are the teams that are going to be able to compete with Canada? You have the U.S. I don't know if Sweden is in that conversation as well. Sweden's always good. But I don't know. Like, I just, like, if they're beating Finland, a team that, like we talked about earlier, was one that maybe could stay there with them a little bit, and Canada's out here beating them 11-1, like it's going to be difficult for other teams. And it's just, and another part on that as well is just like it's going to be difficult for Canada, especially when they face a team like the US, and maybe the US might be in the same situation where they haven't really faced a tough battle, and it's going to be really difficult for them to find ways to maybe find it in themselves to get through a game. But I mean, it's Canada. I mean, I wouldn't have any hesitation to believe that they're not battle tested, because they all are. So it's again, like it's just crazy. I think it's 23-2. They've outscored their opponents, which is in 2 games. I don't. It's nuts.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about the Queen. Let's talk about Sarah Nurse. Comes back from injury and just rifle shots that are so quick that they make you laugh out loud. I'm watching the game, I'm sitting, and then it happens so fast. Just like right, a steal again as Finland is trying to leave their zone, and the puck is off her stick immediately. And so it's just I think just seeing the skill and again seeing the versatility of a player like Sarah Nurse, who literally can do it all. Whether it's a quick shot, whether it's banging away at second and third opportunities in front of the net. How does a player like Sarah Nurse make the team better, not only just for the round robin, but even once you kind of get into an expected gold medal game against a team like the U.S.
Yeah, I mean it for one, it shows the depth in a team. Like I I didn't know for one, I didn't know she had that shot in her. Like that was like you said, it was a rifle, like both of them. Like I was very surprised to see it. But I mean, just when you look at the depth of this team and you look at like I think she's on, is she on the second or third line? I think she's on the
Yeah,
third line
I think I
or
saw. Well,
second.
I think I saw her on the second line left wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you just think about it and you think like she had a bunch of goals. A few other players had a bunch of goals, and it's just like when you look at the depth of the team, there's just it doesn't stop, and it'll be so good for them going forward, just because they won't have to rely on maybe a top line again. They'll have that second line with Sarah Nurse there, but there's other lines as well. But to Nurse's point, for Nurse, sorry, it's just like you said, the two-way player. She's tough to play against. It's it's one of those things when you're up against a USA team that when you put a player like Nurse out, like you're gonna see how good she really is because of the amount of minutes she's logging, the amount of defensive work she does, the amount of contributing on the offensive end that she'll be able to do. You just look at it and you just can't help but just applaud how much depth they have.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you mentioned defense. 'Cause I do want to talk about the defense as well because just like the forward core, the defense is just as overwhelming because you have defensemen, you have the defense players like Larocque, Ambrose, Faust, who jump into the play as often as they can. And it's interesting, I guess, to see how you give the team, you give the force kind of like a fourth option to really work around. You see Foss having a contributing factor on the goal. You have Ambrose, who has a perfect cross ice feed. It's an easy tap in that goes in. So how or what effect can having a team that has has a lot of defensemen who are willing to skate with the puck, walk the blue line, and even join in the rush. Like, what kind of impact does that have on a team?
That's going to be huge, especially when like you get into the later stages. You're going to have forwards that will want to take chances and they will take the chances, but then you'll have that sort of second layer of it's essentially like a fourth and fifth forward at some points, and it's when you start getting into that, it's like that's when the waves start. That's when like you think of the first pairing, they're good, but the second pairing is just as good, and the third pairing is just as good, and they just the way that they can creep up the ice with the puck and just even not creep up the ice, just bring it up on themselves. Like they did it a bunch of times last night, and you watch it and you just can't help but just I don't want to say excited because well I can because I'm from Canada, so it works, but like
Yeah.
you just you just get it, like you get so excited when there's so many players, especially defense, that can bring the puck up and aren't afraid to do it. Like the confidence that they have to do that, especially at the Olympics, the world stage, it's really good to see. And just again, like I said, going into like future rounds and future games, it's going to help them a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it'll be interesting definitely to see, how Canada kind of continues this dominance that they've displayed so far. Their next game is February 7th against the Royal Committee Royal. Oh, I always forget what the ROC stands for.
Is it the
Uh, the Royal Rush. Oh my gosh, not Royal. Come on, the Russian Olympic Committee. So that game will all be on February 7th, and we'll see. How or whether Canada can continue their dominance. So one final thing to talk about before we wrap up. Is another event where we saw a Canadian qualify to the next round in women's snowboard slopestyle. We had three Canadians in, Lori Bluen, Jasmine Bard, and Brooke Void. And of the three, Lori Bluen was the one to qualify, move on to the medal round. Won silver in Pyeongchang, so she does have a lot of experience in this event, and did also get gold at the 2021 World Championships in Big Air. So the first run was actually pretty solid, and I think of the three Canadian snowboarders, she was the only one not to fall, I believe. Which is interesting because at the beginning of the event, the commentators actually brought up a lot how the elements are kind of getting in the way. They mentioned that it was minus 25 degrees Celsius, which, wow. Also that the snow's a little harder as well. So it was actually interesting to see how a lot of the elements actually came to play and kind of came to be in effect. But yeah, Lori Bluen, she ended up qualifying. I want to say she qualified as the seventh contestant, so she'll be in the medal round for the slopestyle the next day, or at least later today, rather. Jasmine Bard and Brooke Voigt both did not make it. However, Jasmine Bard will be in the big air, in the women's big air, so there'll be an opportunity there. Nick, what are your thoughts on snowboarding?
You think about the slope style one, or yeah, slope style, and for me, I've snowboarded before, and when I think of slope style, I think okay, nice and not nice and easy because it's not nice and easy, but you look at it and you think okay, it's more relaxed. I think you look at big air, and they're hitting jumps and they spin and they spin and they spin and they spin and they don't stop spinning until they hit the ground, and that really scares me.
Yeah.
Like it just like just watching it gives me anxiety. Like you look at a guy like Mark McMorris, and you look at the injury that he had a few years ago, and like he almost died. Like you think about it and you think of how cool it is to see these athletes do these amazing tricks, and you think okay, that would be really cool to try someday, but then you sit there and also think if I hit that jump and I keep spinning, I'm not going to stop spinning, and it's not going to be good. But I mean, for athletes, it's really cool to see, especially in snowboarding, especially in slope style, where they have that room to do tricks, and where they have that room, especially in the big air, to hit jumps that are like 20 feet tall, and they do it like it's nothing, and they land them, and it's really cool to see, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if Mark McMorris can really bring home a medal this year. And he's got two bronzes. I'd really love him to see him get a gold.
Yeah, I think that the injury aspect of it is pretty interesting as well, and I think the fact that as these women are walking up to to do their runs, that you just hear like some of the backstory and hear like some of the injuries and some of the things they've had to overcome to get to this point. Like one person that actually stood out was Niemela of Finland, who's coming off heel surgery. And did a pair of runs. So I think it definitely is interesting to see a lot of these athletes kind of put their bodies on the line to to kind of to reach their dreams and to get to where they want to be. But as far as snowboarding goes, yeah, well, big ups to Lori Bluen. We'll be watching and and cheering and supporting her. I think her runs in particular were a lot more unique. than some of the other contestants, especially when it came off the first rails and such, making use of the gaps and making use of the house as well, opposed to just kind of taking it down the quote unquote usual route that some of the other contestants were going down. But yeah, when it comes to the medal round, she'll be the middle of the pack. So it'll be interesting to see if she can bring home another medal and continue Canada's quest for more medals.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, all right. So I think that that kind of wrap things up. So thank you everyone for joining. For those who are here again, whether you woke up for 6 a.m. like myself and Nick, whether you're already up watching Olympic Games the entire night, or wherever you are around the world. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back tomorrow for another episode or another edition of Game Over International.